When we talk about impact, legacy, and longevity in the NFL, few names carry as much weight as Cameron Jordan, a player who entered the league with few opportunities but built a 15-year career based on consistency, growth, and stepping up in crucial moments. And it's precisely this experience that makes his voice so relevant in a debate that goes far beyond the numbers. John Harbaugh's arrival at the New York Jets is the challenge of developing a young quarterback like Jaxson Dart, balancing locker room culture, relying on his experience, and facing legitimate questions about the scheme and relationships. What's at stake here isn't just a hire, but the possible beginning of a new identity for the Jets.
Saints select Cameron Jordan.
He really should have been a tight end. He just likes hitting people.
Down again. Cameron Jordan. He's taken down Cam Jordan again. And your best player takes over when you need it the most.
If you look at the last 11 years of my career, after I earned the right to play on third down, you go from rookie year having 1 sack to where I'm at now. I just needed opportunity.
Cam Jordan joining us now here on First Take, defensive end for the Saints, but more importantly, been in the National Football League for 15 years, knows a thing or two about the whole thing. Hello, welcome to First Take, Cam. What's going on?
I appreciate you guys having me this early.
What's up, big time?
You know?
We're happy to have you. Big news, obviously, last night was the news of John Harbaugh now seemingly becoming the coach of the New York Giants. Let's go from the quarterback perspective, because he's Jaxson Dart, Giants quarterback, same draft class as Tyler Shuck, who had a really good second half of the season. What kind of impact do you think John Harbaugh can have on Jaxson Dart, on the quarterback?
I mean, he was at the Ravens for 18 seasons. He's developed quarterbacks, clearly an MVP in Lamar, and now he's taken over, and you get Jaxson Dart, who has shown flashes of something, of gumption for sure. So you're going to take that and give it, that's consistency, as most consistent as they come. And in this league, when you can have somebody you can rely on, consistency, you know, the temperament, you know, he won't like spaz out on you, that's someone that knows you can grow.
What do you guys think? Chime in here on the impact on Jaxson Dart Harbaugh's going to have.
For me, it's Todd Monken going with Harbaugh. Todd Monken gets a lot of heat, and I think sometimes it's warranted, and we've talked about that with the lack of run. I know this, and I'm not saying, please, Jaxson Dart and Lamar are obviously not in the same conversation. But, one, Dart was really good versus really good teams last year. I think he had like a top 5 QBR versus the playoff defenses. 2, we're talking when Monken had Lamar in his healthy seasons, Lamar won MVP. I think he was runner-up for MVP, 70 touchdowns and something like 11 giveaways. So, and again, I understand different levels of talent, but Monken, track record of getting good, talented quarterbacks to play at a high level. I think Jaxson Dart's first year in a very chaotic situation displayed a high level of talent. So, yeah, Harbaugh, the leadership, the connection of the group, not having to do it all. Monken, great play caller. I think Dart was one of the selling points for Harbaugh going there as well.
Well, I will say the thing I love is no connection, no kinship, no previous relationship, right? And so it's the same thing like when I talk to my kids and they've heard these things I've been telling them for 26 and 24 and 20 years, like I'm just dad. I'm just that dude that's talking, and they can either repeat or say what I'm going to say before I say it. But when I talk to their friends, they can't stop listening. They can't stop asking questions. That's who John Harbaugh is going to be when he walks into this locker room. When he has a conversation with Jaxson Dart about how to protect himself, that conversation is going to come from experience with a 2-time MVP that you also had to guide, that you also had to advise. And the second part of that is empowerment. The one thing I remember from John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson was the time that John Harbaugh was mic'd up. And he sits next to Lamar Jackson during his first MVP year. And he tells him, do you know how many kids are going to be wearing number 8 jerseys because of you? If I'm a young quarterback and if I'm somebody that's trying to make a name in this league and I'm trying to be all that I can be based on my potential, to have a head coach who believes in me in that way but communicates to me in that way is extremely important. And so I think it's less about what Todd Monken is and more about the steadying force John Harbaugh can be. But obviously, when it comes to the X's and O's, the schematics of everything, it's going to be Todd Monken understanding the college game coming from Georgia, understanding a young quarterback with athleticism coming from Lamar Jackson, and now executing that with someone like Jaxson Dart.
Stephen A.
First of all, Cam, it's good to see you, bro. Good to see you. Congratulations and continued success.
That mean he about to hate at some point.
I'll say, lift you up before you
Not
let
on
you
him.
down. Nah.
Not on him.
Oh,
Not,
that's
not
true.
on him, but that's okay. That's okay. Y'all can believe that.
Hey,
Here's the deal, y'all.
great morning.
See-
How about that? Great morning.
That's right. It's hard for me to listen to the kind of attitude that former players have about John Harbaugh because we have present players that clearly had lost the connection with the man. I mean, I'm not making this up. Y'all know this. And so I'm like, wait a minute, RC, Dan, I'm certainly not going to challenge them. They forgot more football than I know. I got that part. But I'm watching. And we've heard and we've seen what people have alluded to as it pertains to John Harbaugh in his last days in Baltimore. And we're just going to bypass that because of all the things that happened beforehand. I'm not doing that. I'm paying attention to what's transpiring as we speak. And then when we bring up Todd Monken, well, let me tell you what the hazard with that is. The complaints that we've had about Todd Monken, it was obvious what he should have been doing from time to time. It wasn't corrected. Why wasn't it corrected? Could it be because John Harbaugh and him are that tight where John Harbaugh just let him do his thing? Is that something that's going to work for you effectively in New York? I don't know the answer to that question. I'm just not as confident and resolute as you guys are in bringing this up. I know that John Harbaugh can coach. I know the man's a Super Bowl champion. I know he's been in the playoffs numerous times. It's not a Pittsburgh Steelers situation where they haven't won a playoff game since 2016. I get it. But I'm thinking about Lamar. I'm thinking about Derrick Henry. I'm thinking about the talent that they've had. And yes, Patrick Mahomes was standing in your way or Josh Allen was standing in your way. Those are two huge, huge impediments, and I get that too. But it's not about just that. It's about what we were hearing from the players. It's about what the owner alluded to. It's like, damn. It's one thing if you just depart ways. And then, listen, Mike Tomlin left, the team stood up and gave him a standing ovation. John Harbaugh was let go through a phone call. Now, I know Bashadi explained that. I know he explained that. But again, optically speaking, we spoke about this yesterday. I'm going to repeat that. Mike Tomlin walked into the office the day after losing in the playoffs, said, we good. It's time for me to step away. Walked into the locker room. RC, you know this better than me. Talked to the team, let them know it was over. They gave him a standing ovation. And he gave a pat and a hug to every single player that was in that locker room. You're going to miss him. The owner in Baltimore called him on the phone. No exit, none of that was going on in Baltimore. Why? Why? That's all I'm saying. Now, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I just think, I don't just talk about it and cover it. I listen to the cats that played. And y'all know, many, many occasions, y'all have brought up nuances like this to point to problems that may not have been, dare I say, publicized. Something missing in the end in Baltimore. I'm just not ignoring that.
Okay, we'll take that for what it's worth. I will go back to your point, though. These are a lot of new faces that are just now meeting John Harbaugh for the first time. So maybe the noise that was in Baltimore will move aside because it's a completely fresh start, it feels like, seemingly, right, in New York. Let's go to the...
But it appears that one of them is no longer vacant. While you were sleeping, Adam Schefter wasn't. Shefty, what is the news for those just joining us?
Greeny, the New York Giants are set to hire John Harbaugh as their next head coach. He spent the day in the training facility yesterday, flew home to Baltimore last night, soon will return again to what will be his new home and his new office as he comes into the Giants organization and tries to do it for this team what Dan Reeves once did, what Tom Coughlin once did, try to restore order, get this team back on track. They've gone through a lot of head coaches themselves in recent years. They wanted to get somebody with his type of experience. They identified, targeted, and recruited him from the moment he was fired in Baltimore. Maybe even were waiting for that moment with a lot of people thinking that John Harbaugh could be let go. Once he was let go, they sprung into action. It's been a full court press to try to get him. I think Chris Mara, John's younger brother, also has been key to bringing John Harbaugh to New York, and they got the guy that they wanted, and he will become the next head coach of the Giants, the first head coach hired in this cycle, and now we'll start to see some of the other activity pick up.
Shefty with the breaking news literally in the middle of the night last night, and so that feels like a huge moment. And you bring up some of their legendary coaches of the past. To me, I think more
Bill
of,
Parcells.
but to that point, I mean, I think more of what Ben Johnson has done and what Liam Cohen has done and what Mike Vrabel has done. Do we believe that John Harbaugh can engineer some sort of turnaround of that magnitude that quickly with this team?
I don't know if that magnitude, but I certainly see a turnaround that means that you could be a playoff contending football team. Absolutely. I think the next dominoes that have to be aligned with this is who goes as their offensive coordinator, because how good Jaxson Dart gets is going to really determine if those teams, or if this team in New York can replicate what the Patriots and the Bears have done this year. But I do think that it matters to have a head coach that now when you think of, you go, okay, established, accomplished, stable, consistent leadership. The Giants haven't had that in a long time. They've had flashes of it, but they haven't had someone that you can sit there and say without doubt, without question, is that. But who goes along with him from his staff is going to really determine how quickly they can get 5 double-digit blown leads last year, the most in the NFL. There's talent on this football team.
And Jaxson Dart is a big part of it. We talk about the quarterback, but as you assessed it, you made an interesting comment here about Dart and how it sort of shapes up within the confines of the division.
I think John Harbaugh immediately becomes the best coach in the division. And I think still Jaxson Dart is the number 4 quarterback in the division. Not because he's not good. It's a talented division for quarterbacks, right? There are quarterbacks in that division. So for John Harbaugh,
Dak Prescott, Jaden Daniels.
absolutely. And for John Harbaugh, I don't think it doesn't need to be a 1-year turnaround like some of those other examples, because we know what John Harbaugh has. That's the benefit of having seen him for 18 years in Baltimore. You understand that if it takes time, it takes time. That's a commitment. Where the other ones, it's like, well, can you get something out of these guys now? Because we need to get the most out of them. These are our quarterbacks of the future. And if you can't, we'll try somebody else. I don't believe that's the case for Harbaugh.
It doesn't have to be next year. He's going to have time, but he has all of the pieces on this team to be a playoff contending team next year. You have so much talent and unique personalities. John Harbaugh is the perfect individual to come in here, rein in these personalities, and just kind of be the leader of men that handles Cam Scatteraboo, Jaxson Dart, Neighbors, this young defensive front that is high flying and can get going. You're 2 pieces away, right? If you get, and they're both in the same room, it's the offensive line room. If you can shore up that offensive line, whether it's in the free agency or in the draft, you have potential to maybe be, you might have the 4th best quarterback, but be the number 1 team in that division next year.
And then also that extra piece being what Danny O was saying is the offensive coordinator. Like, who's going to be the play caller? Who are they going to have pour into the young quarterback? Because the blueprint is kind of showing itself to us. You look at culture, physicality, defensive-minded. You think of McDonald. You think of Vrabel, what he's done at New England. And now Harbaugh, who's in kind of the same box as them. Yeah. Who are you going to bring in as your play caller the same way McDonald has with Kubiak, the same way Vrabel has with McDaniels?
Because Dart needs that development. He needs that mentorship. He needs that help in his decision making.
With his personality.
Personality, how he plays the game.
You love the bravado, but
you want it, but you got to have it confined. And you need a play caller or someone who can develop the quarterback to understand that big picture.
Ben Johnson brings it himself. Mike Vrabel had Josh McDaniels living in the area. Basically was in Foxborough, was not going to get another job like that. So it was perfect for him to be there. John Harbaugh's brought up the name Todd Monken. I don't know that it's automatically going to happen. He becomes one of the guys. He's up for the Browns head coaching job. He was in Tampa interviewing for the Buccaneers offensive coordinator job. There are other teams that will be looking at him. He might go with John Harbaugh, but I don't think it's a lock that happens.
Okay, so the first domino, maybe the biggest domino, has fallen. What is keeping Adam Schefter's fingers busy now? What are we looking at as far as where we go from here? Next dominoes that we expect?
In the end, the discussion makes it clear that John's success in New York won't depend solely on his winning track record or the credibility he brings after nearly 2 decades in Baltimore. The real test will be his ability to connect with the new roster, shape the locker room culture, and above all, accelerate the development of former draft picks without stifling their personalities. As Ken Jordan rightly pointed out, opportunities, trust, and communication make all the difference in the journey of a player and a franchise. Today, the bet is on stability, leadership, and experience, but only time will tell if this combination will be enough to turn flashes of potential into real wins and develop relevance for his team, which has been searching for a new direction for years.